Joining me right now, one of those Republicans, Foreign Affairs Committee member, Armed Services Committee member, and Pennsylvania Congressman Guy Reschenthaler. Congressman, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks very much for joining us. So do you have new momentum now with a new face in leadership ranks?
Maria, we absolutely do. And as always, please just call me Guy, and thanks for having me on. But you notice in that clip that you just played, it was different than the last conference chairwoman because Elise Stefanik was not busy attacking other Republicans. She wasn't busy looking in the rearview mirror. She wasn't obsessed with her differences with President Trump. Elise Stefanik was attacking the Joe Biden administration. She was pointing out all their hypocrisy. She was pointing out the chaos in the world, the stagnation in the economy, the high gas prices, the need to get America back in energy independence. Elise is looking forward. We've got the momentum now leading into 22, and we're going to have a solid message. We're going to focus on attacking Democrats, not each other.
So let me ask you about Joe Biden's agenda when it comes to foreign policy. 1 month ago, this administration sent aid to the Palestinian Authority. We know tensions between Israel and Hamas are now escalating. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he'll do whatever it takes to restore order. And yesterday I spoke with the former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, on Sunday Morning Futures. Listen to what he had to say. Got to get your reaction.
There is a direct line between appeasement and war. We worked for 4 years to create peace and stability in the Middle East, and we made clear to the Palestinian Authority we're not going to underwrite you. We're not going to send American taxpayer money to the Palestinians while you're still committed to wiping Israel off the face of the earth. This administration came in and immediately began underwriting the Palestinians again. This is crazy. This is bad for our friend and partner Israel. It's bad for the broader Middle East, and it puts American lives at risk as well. When this administration refused to allow the Israelis to do the things that they need to do to defend themselves, that's when you get conflict like you see today between Israel and the Palestinians.
So, Congressman, what to do now? We had another night of unrest, rockets flying toward Israel. What's your take on all of this?
Well, Secretary Pompeo said it best. It was the tough position that the Trump administration had on the Palestinian Authority and terrorist organizations like Hamas that kept them at bay for 4 years and also led to historic peace negotiation between Arab states and Israel. But right now, what we can do and what the Biden administration can do is just let the Israelis handle this. Benjamin Netanyahu should be given the ability and should be encouraged to neutralize the threat that's coming from Hamas. We should also look at cutting off funding to individuals and organizations that are funding Hamas and Hezbollah and other terrorist organizations. For example, the Palestinian Authority still has the pay-to-slay program in place where they pay the families of fallen terrorists who have killed Israelis. Funding to the Palestinian Authority needs to stop. Additionally, we need to look at Iran and how much money the Iranians are giving to Hamas to continually fire these rockets into Israel. And Maria, let me just put this in perspective. A lot of people on the left are trying to draw some moral equivalency between the Israelis and the terrorist organizations. That's ludicrous. Israel is a democracy. They're under attack by Hamas and Hezbollah to the north, both terrorist organizations. It would be as if the Mexican drug cartels were firing rockets into LA or San Diego, and we were getting criticized for trying to neutralize the drug cartels. It's a false equivalency. We need to stand behind the Israelis.
Well, it's just unbelievable that, you know, the administration sends money to the Palestinian Authority, and then next thing we know, we have this unrest once again. I want to take you back to domestic policies because we also had breaking news yesterday on Joe Biden running into resistance from within his own party on his massive spending and tax proposals. Wyoming Senator John Barrasso told me yesterday that the president does not have the votes to get these tax increases through. Listen to Barrasso. Got to get your take.
He does not. The Democrats are divided on this, thankfully, for the benefit of the country, because we know higher taxes are going to hurt our economy dramatically.
So, Congressman, my sources tell me that Senator Mark Warner is not with President Biden. Senator Joe Manchin is not with President Biden. And then you've got the New York and New Jersey senators who basically say, I'm not signing on to anything having to do with higher taxes unless a SALT deduction is back in there. And then you've got Bernie Sanders pushing back and saying, I'm not signing on to anything that includes a SALT deduction back in there. So he's got this infighting on tax increases in spending from within his own party. Maybe that means he won't be able to push this through reconciliation. What's your take on where we go in terms of the high tax and spend plans out of this administration?
Well, I think reconciliation at this point is off the table because you would need, of course, 50 votes in the Senate to move forward with reconciliation on a totally partisan line. So that leaves the only option, and that is a bipartisan option. Ironically, the promise was made by Biden moving during the campaign, so he's going to be forced to make good on that. But any bipartisan deal, the Democrats are going to have to move to the right because we're going to have to define infrastructure as true infrastructure, not everything is infrastructure, as the Democrats have been saying. So roads, bridges, locks and dams, rural broadband, et cetera. But as far as these tax increases go, it's very interesting because you have a few Democrats that are holding the line on taxes. The vast majority of the Democrats want higher taxes. They believe that's an issue of what they call equity. But let me be clear about something. If we raise taxes, we're going to crush revenue into the federal government. We won't be able to pay for these programs in the long term because it's going to shrink GDP. Right as we're getting out of this pandemic should be the time where we're doubling down on lowering taxes and reducing regulation. Biden's doing the exact opposite.
Yep. Guy Reschenthaler, great to get your take on this morning. Thank you so much. And
Thanks, Maria.
Apparently there is another meeting tomorrow. John Barrasso going back to the White House to present a plan on hard infrastructure.